So let's welcome Karen and David Brush. Thank you.
I'm not really very good with these things. Can you hear me? How do I do this?
Take it right out.
You want to take it out?
It's not wired.
All right, thank you. David and I just want to welcome you. Thank you for coming here tonight, taking time out of a beautiful day to do. I told you I'm not very good with this. My cue man just told me what to do. I just want to take a couple minutes and tell you how we got involved with the youth initiative here. When we bought the house, I was looking through the paper and I saw an ad that I had seen the last couple of years, which was for the Walter Cronkite Awards. And I said, you know, we now have this connection owning his house that maybe I should go to that. So I went, and it was over in the Whaling Church, and it was really interesting to see what the who the awards had gone to, what those people were doing. There were great speakers at it, and then the kids came out, and I was just blown away by these kids, what they wanted to do. They're all local high schoolers. I think most of them are at the regional high school, and I was just amazed. So I came home, and Dave, as many of you know, plays lacrosse generally at this time of year, and so I called him up and I said, this is such a great organization. These kids, they're just so great. We've got to support this. So we did, and then as we got to know Marianne and the other folks, we said we would like to host this here. And so I hope you enjoy the evening. We've got some great speakers who will come, and then the kids are going to talk to you. And then please take time afterwards when we move around the other side to walk at the dock and look at Walter Cronkite's boat down there, have some drinks and canapes, and please talk to the kids. They're all great. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I'll tell you, she's a joy to work with. She is a logistics master, and so she has kept us on our toes. So thank you very much. The two recipients, Dr. Sylvia Earle and Sam Lowe, were easily selected for using the power of media to create positive social change in the world. Thank you so very much for hosting this incredible event, Karen. And we now turn our attention to the screen to learn more about our first award recipient, Dr. Sylvia Earle.
I see things that others do not. A different world. A world that's changed enormously just in my lifetime. My backyard was the Gulf of Mexico. That's where I first fell in love with the ocean. I think if others had the opportunity to witness what I have seen in my lifetime from thousands of hours underwater, I would not seem like a radical at all.
It's a pleasure to introduce a scientist, an engineer, a teacher, and an explorer.
The ocean is dying. All of us, we are the beneficiaries of having burned through fossil fuels. But at what cost? 60 years ago, when I began exploring the ocean, no one imagined that we could do anything to harm it. I saw the after influence of what we can do to the natural world. Think of the world without an ocean. You've got a planet a lot like Mars. No ocean, no life. No ocean, no us.
In 1990, she became the chief scientist for NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
I went to one meeting, and I was never allowed to go again. I feel that I must resign, and as a private citizen, do what I can do with more freedom.
She's not afraid to say, you know what you're doing and it's wrong.
I really speak for the ocean. If we continue business as usual, we're in real trouble.
She's made it her life's purpose to make sure everybody else understands what's going on.
Sylvia has a wish for the planet, what she calls her Mission Blue. Protect the ocean in the same way we now protect the land.
I wish for a global network of marine protected areas to save and restore the ocean.
Please assist me in welcoming the next generation of journalism in the Cronkite family. Walter Cronkite IV, associate producer for CBS News, where he covers Capitol Hill He's a co-editor of Cronkite's War, his World War II Letters Home, a collection to his grandfather's letters home, Mr. Walter Cronkite IV. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marsha. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. First off, thank you so much to Mr. and Mrs. Brush. It's a beautiful place, and I hope you guys have as much fun here as we had growing up. And thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Schieffer for coming here today. This is quite the honor to be here with you. And it's great to see everyone here. And who am I introducing next?
Dr. Sylvia.
Right. So everyone please welcome Dr. Sylvia Earle. Thank you. Oh. Sure. To Dr. Sylvia Earle for his lifelong commitment to caring for our oceans, and for using the power of the media to inspire, engage, cajole, and challenge people to join with your Mission Blue community to build a more sustainable world. On this day, Tuesday, August 5th, 2013. Wow. Grandfather's biography and the collection of letters to put together.
Wonderful, thank you. Hey.
Get this for you as well.
Oh,
more, and there's more. What treasures, thank you.
And
well.
Do you want to stay there?
All right.
Here we go. These are coming in the mail, so would you?
Oh.
Okay.
Maybe you read one of them.
Okay. Commendation presented to Dr. Sylvia Earle. On behalf of the people of the state of Hawaii, I extend a special aloha to Dr. Sylvia Earle for earning the great distinction of Walter Cronkite Award winner, as well as hosts Karen and David Brush and the Stone Soup Leadership Institute for promoting opportunities for youth to develop into leaders of a more sustainable world. The need for us to change course in the face of grave environmental challenges has become clearer and clearer with each passing year. Dr. Earle has brought together an impressive coalition of top researchers and conservation groups through her Mission Blue nonprofit, and personally articulated an ethic galvanizing us to join her in addressing these challenges. She's been fearless as both an environmental advocate and an explorer, setting a solo record dive in 2012, 1,000 meters below the ocean surface. Mahalo to Dr. Earle for her great work, and to the Stone Soup leadership for their efforts in empowering our Kiki to be to agents of positive change. With warmest regards, Neil Abercrombie, Governor of the State of Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. I am so, deeply honored to receive this award in the name of an individual for whom I have tremendous respect. I mean, I grew up with just thinking about Walter Cronkite, not the fourth, the first, I guess, almost as the voice of God. You know, when he spoke, everybody stood up a little taller and listened. I have a special fondness for him because in 1981, when Kathy Sullivan, skywalking astronaut, and Sylvia Earle, deep diving scientist, were invited to join the then all-male Explorers Club, he was one of those courageous individuals who did not resign. Actually, most of them stayed. Only a few of the curmudgeons did resign. And of course, the Explorers Club has become a much more balanced organization. I had some resistance, but not much, coming along as a scientist and would-be explorer when it was considered to be unusual for a woman not only to get into the Explorers Club, but to get into a wetsuit and flippers and jump into the ocean or dive into the depths with a submarine or whatever. But in 1970, a decade before the Explorers Club took notice, I had a chance to apply to be an aquanaut, to live underwater, to stay underwater for 2 weeks. No women were expected to apply. But the head of the program, who I think had a really good mom and a good marriage, when he saw applications come in for women who didn't know that we weren't supposed to apply, nobody even bothered to say, because there weren't any women astronauts at the time. 1970, this was only, a year after the first footprints on the moon. And at the time there was such an interest in going skyward as well as going into the depths. Walter Cronkite epitomized that spirit of what went up and what went down. With his love of the ocean, his love of the exploration of the skies above, certainly maybe part of what really intrigued me and inspired me as a young woman. But the head of that program, James Miller, living underwater, had to decide, well, shall we do something? Shall we actually have women as a part of this program? And we could say no, because the astronaut program said no, and the world didn't come to an end. But he said, famously, well, half the fish are female. Half the whales, I guess we could put up with a few women. And they did. So I got to be an aquanaut, except they didn't call us aquanauts, they called us aqua babes, they called us aqua chicks, they called us aquanauties. And we survived that and went on to do whatever it is we've done ever since. For me, being here with you and looking out at Walter Cronkite's boat and realizing that his presence is still very much alive and well here in Martha's Vineyard, I'm it's like a dream, and I think I'm awake. I think I'm really standing here in front of neighbors and friends who, like Walter Cronkite, love the ocean, love the skies above, love the knowledge that here we are, entering the 21st century with a generation of youngsters who have come along at a time of the greatest change in all of history. I think of it as a sweet spot in time, because never before could we know what we now know, largely because of those in the 20th century who went up in the skies, those in the 20th century who went down in the ocean, those during all preceding history have gathered knowledge that now kids of today have access to in a way that the smartest people who ever lived before could not access. I mean, if Walter Cronkite as a kid could have access to what you have right now as kids, it's amazing to think, imagine what he did with what he knew. If he knew what you know as a jump start, what he would do with his future. You kids may not really fully appreciate how much has been learned since I came along, since Walter Cronkite, since the people here other than you have arrived on the planet. More has been learned about the ocean than during all preceding history since the middle of the 20th century. At the same time, more has been lost, more changed. And so, at this moment in time, you're armed with that knowledge. If you didn't know that the ocean had problems, we'd be in serious trouble, but you do know. You do have the power, and it's the power of what Walter Cronkite used so well to communicate to his fellow humans, the state of the world, the past, the present, and especially the future. So I'm really honored to be here with you, with Walter Cronkite IV. Woohoo! Talk about the next generation coming along. And I'm so sorry that I have to skip out early because the film, again, about communicating the nature of the world and what's in it, the ocean especially, we're going to be showing it out at Menemsha Beach this evening. But I make a pledge to you that I will come back when you next celebrate this award, the next lot of kids that you bring forward, and really savor the experience. Although I'm certainly savoring it right now, but I'll have a longer chance to do so. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So at the Youth Summit, we discussed oceans and why they're important to us. And so, living on an island, we all mutually felt that we have a really good understanding of the oceans. And we see things a lot more clearly than people who might not live near an ocean or anything like that. And they're very important to our island economically and even like socially. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't come to the vineyard as many, like tourism and everything, if we didn't have such nice beaches. We have very nice beaches, and so I think that the oceans really bring everyone together here, and they're incredibly important to everyone here.
So towards the end of the summit, we were brainstorming, trying to figure out how it was that we could sort of come up with a project that would engage everybody in the community, the locals, the wash-ashores, the island-borns, the tourists, everybody, so we could sort of make our cause their cause, and just so that we could have sort of a mutual understanding, if that makes sense, of how important the oceans are. So we collectively came up with the idea to have a day or a period of days, like 2 or 3, where over the span of the days we would all gather on the beaches. Everybody you can just walk on, like you could have been hanging out at the beach and then see a crowd of people, some tents, some food, some music, and gone, oh hey, let's see what that's about. And we would have 3 different projects going on that would cover most of the bases, the marine the life, like such as the shorebirds, the piping plovers, their common concern. We could have a project that concerned them. We could have just a general garbage, trash cleanup, and we could also be sort of talking about what it is that you have in your lawns that makes them look so beautiful that ends up polluting the water and making it look not so beautiful. Sort of an unaddressed issue that most of us are probably aware of, but not necessarily doing anything about it. And we've been trying to figure out how it was that we could have everybody come together and everybody unite and all have one common goal. And that is what we've got so far. So if you have any ideas, we're open to suggestions.
And what's your name?
My name is Ava Thors. I'm a sophomore.
How old are you?
I'm 15 years old.
And what's your? I'm Haley Bennett. I'm going to be a senior and I'm 17 years old.
While you're here, we want Bob Nixon to come up, who's the Walter Cronkite Award winner last year. And
thank you, and congratulations to Sylvia and to you too for we so value what you're doing. And I just want to say it's thrilling to be here again with the Walter Cronkite Awards, and I think it's a very fitting honor for Sylvia, who I've had the pleasure of trying to keep up with over the past 4 years as we've been making a film on the oceans and on what Sylvia has seen as a witness to our changing world. And so we're very had a great team of filmmakers. Sherry Sand is here with us, one of those, and so tonight we're screening it on Menemsha Beach at 8:30. It's a free screening. It's coming out on Netflix on August 15th as their 4th original documentary. So get your social media skills, tone up your social media skills, and get the word out. We hope you see it. There's the poster of what it is, but it's we hope it's very much Sylvia's message of that we need to create these hope spots. And what's fun this evening and really special is over the past few years, Sylvia has been working with the fishermen primarily in Menemsha, Buddy Vanderhoop and Scott McDowell, the whole posse down there, who have really embraced her idea of marine sanctuary. So they've pinpointed areas that they want Sylvia's help to create these sanctuaries. So if you can come down tonight after this, we don't want to be more disruptive now, but come down. It's free, as I said, in Menemsha Beach. There's a continuous parking shuttle from the Chilmark Menemsha satellite parking lot, formerly known as the Chilmark Dump, for those of you. And so you can just park there. It's right on your way, and they'll run you down a few minutes, so just after dark. So we hope you see you there, and if we miss that, please get the word out on August 15th. Thank you all. Sam, congratulations to you. We're a big fan of you.
I have just one more comment to make, and that is how honored I am to be sharing the spotlight this evening with Sam Lowe. Another hero. Oh my goodness. So I'm not going to steal any of your time, but just to bow low to Sam Lowe. And thank you for all you're doing here and for the world.
Thanks, everyone.
You know, sometimes when we sit down and we hear about 1970 and we talk about the moon, we talk about the water, we don't really realize how much time has really passed. And for Dr. Earle to have accomplished what she did as a woman during that era is profound. And so I am honored to have shared this stage with her. One more round of applause. It's so unbelievable. Now on here we have our next award winner, who I had the pleasure of seeing last evening. And we have with us, our next award winner is Dr. Sam Lowe. And we are so excited because he has brought to us such a load of information. And he is an Oak Bluffs author, filmmaker, and photographer, and he loves the ocean. May I please have Walter IV join us on the stage for that award.
We're going to show a movie first.
Oh, a new addition to the program. So, our movie lady, can we get you to... Okay, okay. Well, in the meantime, when we look at this, I can't wait to see this movie this evening. Are you ready? Oh, okay. So now we're going to see a new movie.
In 2014, the Polynesian Voyaging Society and the voyaging canoe Hokulea embarked on a voyage around the world. A 47,000-mile, 36-month voyage to 24 countries with 68 planned landfalls. We sail for peace, for the love of our planet, and with the desire to leave the children of the world a hopeful, healthy future. To understand Hokulea is to go back in time, to the origin of Polynesia itself.
It goes back 7,000 years ago, where the first really oceanic people came out of China, and they came out of Taiwan. 1,000 years after that, spreading through the Pacific Islands in Melanesia, even in Indonesia. Then you get to Polynesia, this oceanic country bounded by Hawaii in the north and New Zealand in the southwest, and Rapa Nui in the east. 10 million square miles, 600 times more water than this land, biggest country on earth, bigger than Russia. And it was discovered by these extraordinary people. And I say extraordinary because you could argue that They were really the astronauts of our ancestors. They were the greatest explorers on the face of the earth.
Today, as we struggle with the depletion of natural resources, the degradation of our land, heavens, and oceans, and conflicts that result from overconsumption, we believe that ancient wisdom can and will inspire contemporary solutions. Since her launching in 1975, Hokulea has sailed 135,000 nautical miles throughout Polynesia to Micronesia, Japan, and the west coast of the continental United States. What began as an effort to disprove critics who doubted Polynesians' ability to sail purposefully, unaided by navigational instruments, has grown into a cultural reawakening, a living commitment to sustainability, and a movement to bring experiential, value-based, community-grounded education to the forefront.
As the Hawaiian culture is re-emerging, rediscovering, re-strengthening, that's not a common story around the world. That is a story that is unique. There are cultures and languages that have been lost every single day across this planet. This voyage intentionally is supposed to honor, is supposed to celebrate, and is supposed to strengthen all cultures on the planet by respecting them.
Lehua Kamalu is one of the Polynesian Voyaging Society's emerging young navigators.
We wouldn't be here today if our ancestors didn't figure out how to live in balance with their environment and with these islands. There is a lesson in going back to traditional practices and finding some way of bridging the gap between what is modern and ancient and making life livable and healthy and safe.
If you come from the lens of what the canoe is supposed to do, it will do nothing if we're tied to the dock. We're not going to change the world, but we're going to go and build a network of people around the earth who are going to change it. And our job is to help them be successful.
Life was a lifelong commitment to the oceans and your unwavering support for the Polynesian Voyaging Society. Using the power of the media to awaken people to its mission of honoring the Hawaiian culture and traditions for building a more sustainable world. On this day, Tuesday, August 5th, 2013. Thank you.
Would you like us to read them, or are you in a hurry?
Oh, I think we're all in a bit of a hurry, but there is a nice letter. Neil Abercrombie, who's the governor of Hawaii, is rather long-winded, but so we don't need to read it. But he did commend me as well, which was quite a shock. Obviously, to be here with all of you, the Stone Soup Leadership Institute and the Brushes is amazing for me, and to share the stage with Sylvia Earle, who's always been one of my heroes. There's not much more I can say about Hokulea that wasn't said here. I just want to emphasize the fact that in 1976, when this canoe was built, Hawaiian culture was virtually moribund. It was on the way out. And by sailing in the last 40 almost years in the wake of our ancestors, rediscovering how they were able to voyage 3,000 miles without a chart, without a compass, no instrument of any kind, and always find landfall, to be voyaging in the path that our ancestors took to discover one-third of the Earth's surface and settle it, was an astonishing experience for anyone with Hawaiian blood, and it caused a revival of Hawaiian culture that I, as an anthropologist, have never seen anywhere before. And now Hokulea is voyaging on a new mission, and that's why I think I'm sharing the stage with Sylvia. The two leaders, the Polynesian Voyaging Society leader, Nainoa Thompson, and Sylvia, are unified in bringing attention to our oceans, to the need to preserve not just the ocean, but the planet, and to live sustainably. And in a deep sense, Hokulea has allowed us as Hawaiians to recover our past, our ancient wisdom, and then to think of ways to bring that wisdom forward, to present it to the world as a way of being pono, or just, or living in balance with our planet. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank the Brushes for this wonderful event. And what an honor. Thank you.
Dr. Lowe, thank you so very much. Your work is just tremendous, and I think it's really important that we all take time to find out who we are and to retain our heritage. And for that, I am grateful to know that that's what you're doing, and we need to, as a people, figure out how to make that happen. We lose too much of that very important history. So thank you for all of your hard work and your love for this country and for people. I don't know about you, but I'm full. This is, you know, sometimes we get, I don't know how many summer residents we have here, but too often in the big city we're so removed from nature, we're so busy handling our business wherever we are, that we forget about nature and all of the important things that we need to do to make certain that we preserve it. And it takes people like Sylvia and Sam to bring it back to our attention, to remind us of what our responsibility is to this planet. I would also like to now, I'm very excited, we have a presentation of some of the citations. Marianne, are we going to do? We did that already. Okie dokie. So we're going to keep this moving. Well, it's my distinct honor to introduce our next speaker. And Bob Schiffer, I have listened to you all of my life, and I am proud to be in the same room with you. It's so amazing that after all these years, you're a world-renowned television journalist with CBS since 1969, weekday anchor CBS Evening News, chief Washington correspondent, moderator of Face the Nation, one of the few journalists to have covered the White House, Pentagon, and the State Department and Congress. You've moderated the third presidential debate between President Bush and Senator Kerry in Tempe, Arizona. You moderated the third presidential debate between Senator Barack Obama and Senator John McCain. And you moderated the third debate of the presidential candidates in 2012 between President Obama and former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney in Boca Raton. Thank you so much for joining us, and please, if you will give him a warm round of applause, Mr. Bob Schiffer.
Thank you all so much. My job here is a pretty easy one because I've been asked to say a few words about Walter Cronkite. And that is very easy for me because Walter Cronkite was who I wanted to be when I was a young reporter. It is still who I want to be after some 46 years at CBS News. Walter was my mentor, he was my friend, and you know, people always, the question I always get asked about Walter Cronkite is, what was Walter really like? Well, the answer is, he was exactly the way you would want him to be. He was exactly in private life as he was on camera. And I know all of us from time to time meet celebrities, and sometimes we love them, we think, isn't that great? And sometimes we say, oh, I wish he hadn't been such a jerk. It just ruins everything. Walter was Walter. He talked exactly as he did on television. I always remember one time after I was the White House correspondent, and Walter, and I'll say a word to all you young scientists and those of you who are interested in the environment, Walter was the single most curious person I ever knew. If there was a car wreck out in this parking lot right here, it would be the first car wreck Walter Cronkite had ever seen. He'd want to go out, he'd want to get all the names, he'd want to find out how it happened, he would want to find out who was responsible. He just had a curiosity about everything. I mean, once at 6:20 and the news went on at 6:30, Walter turned around to somebody on the desk and said, how long is Greenland? Well, who the hell knows how long Greenland is? Who has ever wondered how long Greenland is? But Walter had the question. And he would always go, we used to call them WWs, Walter Wants to Know. And they would bring the whole news department to a stop while we got answers to these questions. And that's why he was such a great editor. He could always think of the question that you had forgotten to answer. And I always remember one time when I was the White House correspondent, and Walter called me at the White House, and he did this often. I mean, you'd always hear from Walter. He was always in contact with his reporters. And he asked me a question, and for once, I knew the answer. And he said to me, well, thank you, Bob. This old gray head just had a question mark above it. He talked that way. I mean, he really did. But that was a great day of my life that I knew the answer. Walter loved science. We all know about his love of the space program. We also know about his just love of science, and all of you young people who are turned in that direction. It is so important to have an appreciation for the environment. Walter was really ahead of his time on the environment. You know, I'll never forget the first Earth Day. And at Walter's insistence, and because Walter was the driving force, and it was a Walter Wants, CBS did a 1-hour special that night, and I was the one assigned to go out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and report on Earth Day in Albuquerque. And all I can remember, there were a bunch of people on horses. I can't remember what they were doing, but we did a story about it, and we did these stories all over, and it was because Walter thought it was so important. And later on, Walter started a series called Can the Earth Be Saved? And we did all these stories about the environment. Well, that seems kind of natural now and sort of part of the routine. It was very unusual in those days. And it was all because of Walter understanding that we need to take care of this planet that we live on. I don't want to talk very long here, but I want to just tell you one story about Walter Cronkite. I told this at his memorial service that I think, to me, sums up who Walter Cronkite was and what he stood for and what he liked. Walter, first and foremost, was a journalist. He was a newsman. I always thought that one reason he was so popular is because people looked at Walter and said, you know, that's a great job old Walter has, and old Walter knows it. Well, the truth is, he did know it, and he loved it. And he loved reporting to people. I never, in all the time that I knew Walter Cronkite and was around him at conventions, at any kind of political rallies, I never saw Walter be rude to a single person who came up to him. And beyond that, he loved talking to people. I mean, people would just walk up to him on the street and say, Walter, what's going to happen in that Republican primary? He'd stop and say, well, what's your sense of what's happening? And he would actually talk to people about things like that and thoroughly enjoyed himself. He wasn't just being polite. But who was Walter Cronkite? Here's who Walter Cronkite was. In 1976, I was the White House correspondent. President Ford, who had been our first unelected president, was running for president to be elected in his own right. And one day, we all went up to New York. The White House made some excuse for going up there, but the reason we went up there was that Barbara Walters was going to interview Barbara Walters was going to interview President Ford, and it was going to be broadcast the next morning on the Today Show. And Barbara being Barbara, and she's the toughest reporter I ever competed against, Barbara being Barbara put out the word that anyone who interviewed President Ford before her interview ran the next morning on the Today Show, anyone who did that would be killed. And she had a way of making people believe that. And in fact, they might have had good reason to believe that. But anyway, all of us being reporters in the White House press corps, of course, we set about trying to bust Barbara's exclusive. So I went to the White House press secretary, and I said, what do you think? Absolutely not. We've given our word to Barbara Walters. We are not going to let the president be interviewed by anybody. So I then went to the White House chief of staff. He was 32 years old. I called him Dick. He was an excellent staff man. Later, I would come to call him Mr. Vice President, Dick Cheney. And I said, Dick, I said, we're in a bind here. I said, this is going to make us look. He said, Bob, we have given our word. We are not going to let the president be interviewed by anybody until that interview runs. And I said, well, let me ask you this, Dick. I said, you know, I know the president likes Walter Cronkite. Do you think it would be possible for Walter to just come in and just say hello to the president? I said, I know he likes Walter. And he said, well, yeah, we could do that. And I said, well, now, Dick, would you mind if I brought a camera crew along just so Walter will have something for his files? I know he likes. He said, Bob, we're not going to do any interviews. I said, well, just to have the crew come in and take. He said, okay. He said, I'm going to let you do this, but he said, I'm authorizing no interviews. Well, the big story that fall, other than the presidential race, was flu shots. This was the first year of flu shots. And there were a lot of people were getting sick, and there was concern about whether this was the right thing to do. So anyway, that was the big story. So at the appointed time, they took us around to the back door of this arena where President Ford was appearing. He was up in Yonkers, New York. And I was there, and we had the camera crew, and Walter came along, and so the sound man gave Walter the microphone. So what happened was, Walter, they opened the door, we all walked in, Walter walked up to President Ford and said, hello, Mr. President, are you going to take your flu shot? Well, President Ford almost burst out laughing, but he didn't, and he managed to keep a straight face, and he said, well, yes, Walter, I am. I've decided that this is the right thing, and I think the president needs to show an example. Well, by this time, the White House press secretary literally got Walter around the waist, and I thought he was going to wrestle him to the ground. He was just absolutely furious. We all left there. But that night, on the CBS Evening News, here's the way it started. Good evening. President Ford told me in an exclusive interview on the campaign trail today that he would take his flu shot. And then we proceeded to play all 9 seconds of that interview. Well, people have always asked me over the years, what was my biggest scoop and what was the thing I was most proud of? I want to tell you, my fingerprints were not on that scoop in any way, shape, or form. Only one person knew how it came about, and that was Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite loved nothing more than a scoop, especially if it was his own scoop. And I want to tell you, from that day on, Walter looked out for old Bob. It was the single best thing that ever happened to me. But I would just sum this up by saying he was a wonderful friend. I would not be probably standing up here today had it not been for Walter Cronkite. But you know, he set the great example for all of us. What he stood for, his principles, checking out stories, never do a story unless you're absolutely sure that it is right, and never ever do a story unless you give the people on the other side, if there are 2 points, 2 positions, a chance to express their views. He was a wonderful guy, and I know, knowing him as I did, he would have loved to have been here today. Thank you all very much.
Is that hilarious? You know, it's so funny. You have this picture in your mind that somebody's very stoic and all that, and they're out there playing games and having fun and making news, right? So we have another newsmaker, Chris Callahan, who is the founding dean, Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University, and vice provost of the downtown Phoenix campus. Under Callahan's leadership, the Cronkite School has transformed into a national journalism leader, known for its focus on multimedia journalism, innovation and entrepreneurship, intensive professional experiences, and partnerships with news outlets. Cronkite has become a leader in providing news content to local, regional, and national news organizations, as well as directly to consumers through a series of innovative programs on all platforms. The school's been the centerpiece of recent articles about U.S. journalism in the New York Times and the Times of London and around the world. Please help us welcome Chris Callahan.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Marcia, for that generous introduction. And thank you to Karen and Dave for this fantastic venue and for the weather. This is about 40 degrees cooler than what I left in Phoenix, so I appreciate you guys setting that all up. And Sam, congratulations on this great honor. Mary Ann asked me to talk just very, very briefly about Walter's legacy, and that's really easy to do because we have two fantastic illustrations of Walter's legacy right here today. Bob Schieffer, who, and I, by the way, I begged. I said, please, can I go before Bob? Because I've heard him. I know he's great. Bob was the Walter Cronkite Award recipient last year at the Cronkite School. So thanks, Mary Ann, for not changing that. But when you talk about Walter's legacy, you talk about great journalism. And there's some great journalism out there, and there's some pretty terrible journalism out there. The legacy, the Walter's legacy, and the connection that Bob and Walter had, I would just encourage you, if you want to see part of what Walter's legacy is, tune in on Sunday mornings to Face the Nation, and you watch Bob Schieffer do interviews. That is a major part of Walter Cronkite's legacy. It's fantastic. From a very different generation, we have Walt Cronkite. Very different generation, right? Walt Cronkite, associate producer for CBS News in Washington. There are certain characteristics that make a great journalist, young or veteran. You want to be smart, and you want to be ambitious, and you also want to be, as Bob said, curious and analytical and passionate. And mostly you want to care. And this young journalist has all of those qualities in the very, very highest levels. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and I would say that your grandfather would be enormously proud of what you're doing. Congratulations on we talk a lot about Walter's legacy at Walter's School, not surprisingly. When it first became the Cronkite School back in 1984, Walter only had two stipulations. One, the word journalism had to remain in the name of the school. And you would think, well, it's a journalism school. But actually, there's a lot of schools out there that are the mass communication, mass media. They're very fuzzy, as Walter would say. He wanted to make sure that the journalism school was about journalism, number one. Number two, he wanted it to be practical. He did not want a lot of theoretical mumbo-jumbo. He wanted it to be highly focused on the profession. And so we designed a school around Walter's vision, which is very much focused on professional development and professional work. So you will see Cronkite students all across the country. We have actually working news bureaus in Phoenix and Washington and Los Angeles, and we're going to be opening up one in Mexico City. We have an investigative story running this week in the Washington Post that these young Cronkite students have done, and I think that is a great testament to Walter's legacy. But what we've done with the design, most importantly in my mind, is reinforce the values that Walter embodied for so long and so well. The values of objectivity and accuracy and fairness. At a time where the media world is changing dramatically, and again, there's a lot of good journalism out there and there's a lot of pretty terrible journalism out there, we think those Cronkite values are more important today than ever before. We spent a lot of time focusing on that, paying homage to his legacy by creating a school designed around those values. And I will end by saying I have what might be the easiest job in the world. Because anytime I have a decision to make, which has to do with journalism and the future of journalism education and training of future journalists, I ask myself one very simple question: what would Walter do? And and they pay me for that, which is remarkable. And it's a really easy job. Anyway, it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, one thing I can say for sure, Chris, you know, Walter would be very proud of you and carrying on his legacy and the work that you're doing out there and turning that campus into a hub for PBS, and all the rest of the work is profound in such a short period of time, and we're very, very proud of you. Let's give him another round. So our next speaker is the Executive Director of the Martha's Vineyard Youth Leadership Initiative, and the parent organization is Stone Soup Leadership Institute. She's the author of the book and educational curriculum, Stone Soup for the World, Life-Changing Stories of Everyday Heroes. Well, I have to give a little anecdote. I used to work for a company in Baltimore, and one of the founders of that company was the Dean of Engineering, Dean DeLoach. And he called me and he said, Marcia, I want you to meet somebody that's in town. She's just like you. She has blonde hair and blue eyes, though. I said, so she's just like me. And he said, you will love her. Her spirit and the program that she's working on is right up your alley. And so go over and meet her. And I did. And that was in the early 90s, and she corralled me to work with her with the Stone Soup Leadership Institute. And the book is profound. It's stories, literally 100 stories of people who have just done incredible work around the world and changing lives. And we have seen the lives that have been changed by the children that are here. And the program is so comprehensive, and she's going to get more into that. But it's a joy and a pleasure to work with her, Miss Mary Ann Larner.
So, boy, we usually do it a little different. This is a hard act to follow, all of you guys. And you know, I can probably imagine what it's like for Walt to be here. But I would remember, you know, coming here to meet with Mr. Cronkite. And so thank you, Karen and David, for welcoming us here, because his spirit's here. You know, it really is. And I know it's your home, and Walt keeps reminding me every time I say, oh, the Cronkite home, he goes, it's the Brush home. And I said, right. So thank you all for being here and honoring Mr. Cronkite, and also something that really mattered to him was the future, and that's what we do. We're sharing Mr. Cronkite's story. So we had a board meeting. It was actually right after an event at the Old Tabernacle in Oak Bluffs, where someone from Baltimore came and saw what we were doing. We were honoring people for doing good deeds on Martha's Vineyard. Mr. Cronkite was one of them, and he was also our honored speaker, and they invited us to come to Baltimore. They said, boy, you really need to come to Baltimore. So that was how I ended up meeting Marcia. But before that, we were in a board meeting, and I got a phone call Saturday afternoon. Miss Larned, this is Walter Cronkite. And I said, oh my goodness. You know, cold call. And it was really something, because my board was sitting out there, and I said, Mr. Cronkite's on the phone, and they said, right. So, you know, I said, really, close the door. And he basically said, would you, get together? And I said, sure, I'll be right there. You know, I'm in Vineyard Haven, you're in Edgartown, 5 minutes with no traffic, 10 minutes, half an hour with traffic. But he wanted me to meet Walt's father, Chip. So we met in New York at CBS. And that became the beginning of our relationship. He wanted to make a television series based on my book. And he was concerned about the lack of people being educated about the issues and what was going on the planet. And he thought the stories in the book would help that process. So it's been an interesting journey. Many, many wonderful stories together. But the most important story is that 10 years ago, we used to work with the adults and the teachers, and we did a 4-year demonstration project on Martha's Vineyard, and working with the teachers and the schools that work with the kids and the students. And 10 years ago, we started working directly with the kids. And that has been totally life-changing, because when you ask these young people 3 questions, what's my dream for my life, for my island, and the world? And we've been doing that for 10 years, right? Yep, and they all, if you ask them, they'll tell you. And they have big ideas for what we could do on the planet. So it's really important to ask young people, because we need them. But if we don't ask them, you know, they're going to sit back and let you do it. And trust me, they got a whole lot more energy. I mean, you know, Kaylee and Ava getting up here, that was brave. They just took the first summit. Usually we don't have our speakers until after a year or 2 or 3. And I'm going to let them tell you, because we have some real champions. And I'm just going to try and do this without crying. Because I woke up this morning and I said, oh, I'm not going to see Mary and Charlotte every day anymore. I can't go into Linda Jean's and go see her. So, you know, Mary and Charlotte and Bella, would you come up here so I can just be with you guys? So, Mary Olin, she's had quite a year. Yeah. And Mary's dream was to be at least a senator. So we, you know, did some cool stuff together. She can tell you about it. And she was nominated by Bella to help carry on Bella's leadership with the Governor Patrick's Youth Leadership Council. And Bella is now a incoming sophomore at Howard University. And Bella has a profound commitment and made some major changes on this island. And we're going to have the first ever principal of color on this island. He was invited, Bill Traverso, and we're really proud of that. And Bella's going to come back from Howard to meet him, so that, you know, Martha's Vineyard has a lot of diversity, and we celebrate that. So you're going to hear about these young people and what they've done. Charlotte has just brought this joy, and Dan Stanton was her mentor last summer, and she wrote me the nicest thank you note. Oh my God, you'll see some of it's in the program because I took that quote out of there. I love those thank you notes. But so Bella, would you start?
Hi everybody, as Marianne said, my name is Isabella. I'm a sophomore at Howard University. I joined MVYLI when I was a sophomore in high school. I was a little shy little girl, but MVYLI has really presented me with amazing opportunities where living on Martha's Vineyard, we're very, I wouldn't say sheltered because it's only a 45-minute boat ride to the real world, but we're not, the opportunities that are off island and out in the world don't come to us as easily as people off island. And also, we go to an amazing high school, but it's very educational, and it doesn't really give you the leadership opportunities that MVYLI has presented. I met with Rose Styron, who is work deeply with Amnesty International. And well, let me tell you what I want to work internationally as a human rights advocate. That's what I'm going to school for right now. So yeah, I would say that MVY is just, it's what every kid on the island needs, which we're only 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But hopefully as years goes on, it can grow and more kids can experience what I experience and what we all have. So thank you so much for coming out to celebrate all these amazing people. And I'll pass it on to Mary.
Hi guys, I'm Mary. I just graduated high school this year. I'll be attending Wellesley College next fall. I joined, well, I think I was a sophomore. Seems like forever ago. Basically, MVYLI is just an amazing opportunity. As Bella said, I wish everyone in the high school could go through it. Through MVYLI, I've gotten to do the summit twice and learn more about the island and sustainability, which I hadn't really thought about before my sophomore year, which now I think about all the time. And also, I just want to say that it's really empowering. I think everyone talks about young people as being the leaders of tomorrow, and through MVYLI, I think we've all learned that we can really be the leaders of today and actually make a difference in our community, in our island, and in our world. So thank you.
And we keep on saying MVYLI, but it's really Marianne who is behind us pushing us, getting us up out of our bed in the middle of the winter to go listen to people speak that maybe we don't really want to listen to, but in the future, down the road, it has definitely helped me. So thank you to Marianne.
Hi, I'm Charlotte McCarran. Well, I guess, I don't know, before I joined MDYLI, I was kind of, I guess my whole high school experience was more, I don't know, self-centered, I guess. I was kind of maybe not necessarily caught up in that rat race, but more, I don't know, interested in getting good grades, getting good grades, playing well in sports, blah, blah, blah. But I think with MDYLI, it makes you kind of take a step back and, like Marianne and everyone has said, really look at your community and your world and how your success can also be the success of others. So I think that's, I don't know, my main takeaway. And I think what MDYLI really enforces. So thank you, Marianne, and thank you, MDYLI.
So take some time to get to know them because they're very special. And I think I might have jumped the gun on the agenda, but that happens. I'm just sitting there going, oh, there's Bella. I hadn't seen Bella. Oh, do you want to get us back on track? Great.
Well, we are really excited because we have one of our winners last year, and she actually is here with us, and we have a tribute to Walter Cronkite, and one of our program managers is Sylvia Anderson. And we're very excited because she's in the middle of 12 different things, trying to get ready to go to college, and she has made certain that we have the video ready, except now we've got to change computers. You know, technology is something. You got to always do something. All right, so that's going to run for a minute, but this is Sylvia Anderson, who's diligently working to try to make all this happen, but she has taken the time and over the course of a year worked on the development of this video. So we're very grateful and we see a great future. You know, the beauty of this program is to be able to see all these people that I've known for 5 or 6 years and watching them be mature and become women of the world or men of the world. So Sylvia, I guess, are we ready now to run this program? And it's a tribute to Walter Cronkite.
As we begin this new millennium, it's a good time to take stock. Where have we been? Where are we going? What do we want the next 100 years to bring for ourselves and for our families? And who will chart our path?
I have a dream. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Men and women of courage and action set the course for the 20th century. I've been privileged to live in a time of great heroes.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Everyone has been touched by these global heroes who made their mark on the world by the power of their example. In today's world, young people are hungry for role models and modern-day heroes they can look up to and follow. Many people overcome obstacles in their lives and make the world a better place for all of us. Everyday people, from good Samaritans to dedicated community volunteers. Their stories are told in the book, Stone Soup for the World.
The book is great stories of ordinary folks, like most people would meet in their neighborhood, who just saw something that was a challenge and decided that they wanted to make something better. Whether it was in their neighborhood or in their school or the environment or for the homeless. I think that We all have stories like that.
The Stone Soup Foundation brings people together to address problems in our communities. It's based on the island of Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, a small place with a strong spirit of community. People help each other out. They care for the elderly, help with each other's kids, and pull together to raise a barn and lift the community's spirit. The foundation is working with our children to pass on this legacy of helping one another. At town meetings, students invited people to vote for their favorite local heroes. In 1998, the Stone Soup Foundation honored the 35th anniversary of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech.
Don't give up. Don't become bitter. Don't get lost in a sea of despair. Keep the faith. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on to your dreams. Walk with the wind. Let the spirit of history be your guide. Thank you very much.
Grounded in local values, small local ideas are catching on and involving important people, from our backyard to the world. What is a hero? Joseph Campbell once said, "A hero is someone who responds to a call for service and gives his life to something bigger than himself." The hero's journey begins with a single step. It's that moment when you decide to stand up for something you believe in.
Walter Cronkite was the best journalist and the most trusted man in America. The precision and forcefulness of his words lay on the previous research before opening his mouth. He wanted to give everyone the facts, concrete, nothing speculative or abstract. In news and in life, this is something that really makes a difference. If we don't take time to plan ahead before we go into anything, we are relaying our future to the uncertainty. As Walter Cronkite did, we need to project firmness and commitment to every single action we do every day. This is the only way we can inspire everyone around to take us as a role model.
Walter Cronkite was an accomplished TV journalist, but he was so much more than that. He brought life and passion to the nightly news. He made people feel like they were a part of something bigger than themselves. Walter Cronkite allowed people a glimpse into worlds they would never have known otherwise. He was a part of a generation of journalists who strive for the truth, instead of the money and power many journalists strive for today. Walter Cronkite was humble. He wasn't in his job for his ego. He felt a strong sense of purpose and responsibility to bring the truth into the eyes of the world. We are part of a team. Just like Walter Cronkite. He believed in being part of a team. He believed in building a better world. So let me end by quoting Walter Cronkite. As journalists, our job is only to hold up the mirror, to tell and show the public what has happened.
Walter Cronkite's journalism was always infused with the kind of moral authority and passion that lit our path, and which I have tried to embrace during my almost 50 years as a journalist. For example, Walter traveled to South Africa almost 9 years before I did. He went during the most vicious, oppressive era of apartheid to speak on behalf of a black journalist who had been nominated to receive the country's most prestigious journalism award. Now, Walter didn't mince words, speaking of the need for a free press, principally to educate the public. And he went on to put South Africa's refusal to grant a visa to a CBS correspondent on a par with the Soviet Union's behavior. It was a bold, brave statement infused with moral authority that in the end drew the wrath of the regime and lost Walter his requested interview with the Prime Minister, although Walter, after being lectured by the government official, got up and thanked him very much and left before he could tell him he couldn't get the interview. Walter refused to give an apology the government was demanding. Walter Cronkite's example showed generations to follow that the standard was not objectivity, as so many journalism schools drill into their students, but fairness and balance infused with passion. The standard I have embraced reporting from all over the world. This award in Walter Cronkite's name will spur me to keep on keeping on, trying to the best of my ability to be a witness on behalf of a public that needs all of us to be the best that we can be in a profession that I still consider to be one of the noblest of all.
Somewhere on this planet, there well may be those who have the solution to each of the world's problems. And Stone Soup for the World is asking all of us to take that first step. It's time to roll up our sleeves. It's time to share our stories and teach our children that they can be heroes. It's time to take action and chart the course for our future. And that's the way it is. I'm Walter Cronkite.
That is awfully powerful. Chavonnet, please take a stand and give a bow. Let's give her a round of applause. Excellent. You know, I think one thing that's really important here is that you've only seen a glimpse of some of the people that we have touched. And to watch this movie, it reminds me of all the reasons why I've been involved. And it just puts a couple of exclamation points to remind me that my work is not done. But I'd like to bring up our host for the evening, Mr. David Brush, to talk about his vision for the future.
Please, yes, please, come join me. I will recognize that I'm standing between all of you and cocktails, so I'll keep my closing remarks brief, but I don't know about all of you, but I feel somewhat in awe of being in the presence of people who have shown so much passion, so much commitment, and so much dedication to the cause and the cause that they believe in. So I want to congratulate our award winners for all they've done and their efforts. I want to congratulate Bob and Chris and Siobhan for their carrying on the legacy of Walter Cronkite. And I will tell you, Karen and I felt that when we bought this home. We felt like we had a responsibility to carry on that legacy. And by the way, please, it's the Cronkite home. You don't, not the Brush home. You can call it the Cronkite home. And I think there's no better advertisement for what the Institute does than these young women who are up here. And I think you can feel from them what they've said, how much this means to them and how much this opportunity for them to get those leadership opportunities and mentoring opportunities. I think it's a little easy for us who are summer residents to think that there's so much abundance of opportunity and resource here in the Vineyard. But the 9 months of the year when it's not teeming with people from the outside, the Vineyard can be somewhat of an isolated place. So I think what the Institute does and the opportunities it provides for these young women to get those experiences and to get those opportunities, I think is fantastic, and we should carry that on. So it only really left then to say thank you all for coming, for your support, your financial support. Thank you again for those who participated in the presentation tonight. And I'll leave you with this one thing, not just beyond the financial support that I know you've all made in being here and that I hope you will continue to make. I know there's a lot of talent under this tent. And so if you feel so moved, please provide your time, your talent, and be a mentor or coach, internship opportunities, whatever you can do. Marianne, I know her email address is all over the material, so get in contact with her because I know that will be something that is heavily and highly valued by the Institute. So thank you again all for coming, and please come back, enjoy the beautiful sunset and the cocktails right around the back there, and we're all set up in the back. So thank you again. Thank you.
Hello. not going to happen.
Hello? Yes. I do want to say thank you very much to our staff, and that is Elise, Marika, and Tammy. If you could just raise your hands, and a big thank you. And certainly thank you to the brushes for your generosity.